last speaker, before we go into our main discussion period, is Ian Tubby. He joined Forest Research in 1997, and since then he's been involved in numerous research projects investigating the potential for forestry and energy crops to produce low carbon heat and power. And since 2010, he spent quite a lot of time with the Forestry Commission. Over to you.
Thanks very much indeed. Good afternoon. Bioenergy and forestry and sustainability is a truly massive subject area, so I'm going to constrain myself to just looking at UK forestry over the next 15 minutes or so. What I want to quickly canter through really is a quick overview of forestry. I'll try and give you an idea of why Forestry Commission is interested in bioenergy in the first place, and as we go I'll talk about some of the issues relating to carbon and sustainability. So as Caroline has already mentioned, woodland cover in the UK is very low compared to the rest of Europe, and UK forestry production is somewhere in the region of 10 million tonnes a year, and nearly all of that is softwood. In addition to homegrown timber, we import around about 80% of the wood we use at the moment. In the UK, all woodlands have been managed for fuel and fibre production at some time, apart from maybe a few hectares of Caledonian pine in Scotland. But our woodland has all been managed. As a result, the biodiversity that we associate and we value in our woodlands today is really a product of previous management practices. And at the moment as well, all forestry operations are obliged to comply with the UK forestry standard. That's regardless of how the wood is used in the end. And that really underpins sustainable forest management in the UK at the moment. So forestry over the last 30 years or so has been through a period of decline in the UK. The real terms price of wood has declined since the mid-80s, and although we're seeing a little bit of an increase, that is not really a very happy shaped graph if you're a woodland owner and want to sell your wood. And the low price has also influenced the amount of wood that's coming out of our woodlands. This graph shows the amount of hardwood harvested from woodlands in the UK. Started off around about 1 million tonnes a year in the mid-80s, peaked a few years later, and now it's declined to a miserable 500,000 tonnes a year. So that really is a very low level of activity. And energy markets are already here, and they're already influencing forestry. Of that 500,000 tonnes, about 80% is delivered to energy markets at the moment. So we're very pleased that energy markets are there and that they're helping us manage some woodlands at least. So this combination of low prices and low deliveries has given us a situation where the annual increment of our woodlands is not being harvested. So every year, woodlands in England produce about 4 million tonnes of wood that are just sitting there, and we're not making use of it. So what we're trying to do is go into woodlands and start mobilising some of this yellow unharvested annual increment and bring that to market to stimulate both green economy and also produce renewable energy and help towards carbon reduction targets as well. And the beauty of the existing woodland resource is that there's no land use change associated with it. So straight away we don't have to come up against that argument. It's making better use of what's already there. I'm not pretending that UK forestry is going to answer all of our energy needs. This 4 million tonnes here is probably a 10th or a 20th total amount of biomass that we need in this country. But even so, it can make important contributions, especially to the renewable heat market. And to this end, we've published an implementation plan designed to bring woodlands back into management via the use of energy markets. We really want to use energy markets to start putting a bottom in the timber market. And if we can kind of develop a situation where woodland managers can actually go in and start taking out lower quality wood, hopefully the trees that are left behind will be of high enough quality to go into construction and sawn timber markets. And also in this we're very conscious of biodiversity. Lots of bird species in particular have been in decline, and if we're actually able to bring management back, that will increase the number of ecological niches in the woodlands, and then each of those niches in turn supports a different population of plant and animal species. We've not ruled any markets out at all, but we think the focus should really be on renewable heat for forestry in the UK, mainly because that market supports a higher price than large-scale power generation. Wood fuel prices at the moment are around about £100 per tonne delivered, and that gives you an energy price of about 3 or 3.5 kilowatt hours, 3 or 3.5 pence per kilowatt hour of heat delivered. So that competes really well with certainly oil and even gas in some situations. And this is a fairly typical setup. You can see that the wood being harvested is very low quality. It's not suitable for going through a sawmill, and using fairly basic equipment there to turn it into a real high value, high quality fuel. And just looking at the renewable heat market, looking at the renewable heat incentive documentation, the value of boiler installations by 2020, if the low debt projections are followed, could be around 5 billion. The annual value of the wood fuel market could be 0.6 billion. That's a massive number for forestry. That's truly staggering. It could also create 6,000 jobs in the forestry and agricultural sector. And also, if we move to a situation where we've maybe got 20 or 30,000 biomass boilers scattered around the country, that will fit in really well without depletion of woodlands. And if each of those boilers is using a few tens or a few hundreds of tonnes of wood, that should ensure we've got a good, robust local supply chain. We're also getting lots of inquiries at the moment about people who are concerned about energy security, and they're also landowners, and they're looking at growing their own wood fuel. Again, we're really excited by that, because that could actually help further improve carbon benefits, because we're sequestering carbon in new woodlands being planted. So that's great, but we also hear a lot of people are very concerned that we're promoting the use of wood in energy supply chains at all, and they argue, well, why aren't we using wood in construction and wood products? DEC commissioned some research a few months ago that looked into this question in a lot of detail, and the take-home messages really are where you're managing woodlands already, don't stop, and that you can you get higher carbon saving if you carry on managing those woodlands to provide a range of wood fuel and wood products. If you stop your management, carbon stocks in the woodland will grow, reach a plateau, and then go no further. And also, if you're not managing your woodland, you are leaving that wood vulnerable to wildfire, pest and disease, and also the effects of climate change as well. Where you may run into difficulties is when you're bringing neglected woodland back into management. So you don't want to clear fell an ancient woodland and put it all in a power station or energy supply chain. Nobody's advocating that at all. So to avoid carbon debt, we need to take small volumes of wood from the woodlands, maybe over the course of 20 or 30 years. And again, that really fits well with the renewable heat market. And happily, the analysis shows that the best carbon impacts really fit very well with current practice, where different parts of the tree are going to different markets. Base of the tree going to sawmills, smaller diameter wood going to wood panel factories, and proportional also to energy markets. As I already mentioned, forestry in the UK is based on the UK Forestry Standard. To fell a tree, you need a felling licence from the Forestry Commission. If you don't have a felling licence and you fell the trees, Forestry Commission can and does take people to court, and they can ensure that you restock the site that you felled. So that's legally enforceable, and that's really important. That gives the supply chain confidence that forestry in the UK is sustainable. And sustainability is not just carbon. Other speakers have already touched on this issue already, and that sustainability needs to ensure biodiversity, as maintained or improved, and the soil and water is not damaged, and also the social and economic issues are taken into account. So in conclusion, bioenergy markets can certainly drive an increase in woodland management. They can help improve biodiversity and they can reduce carbon emissions, but only if they're based on sustainable forest management practices. And I think really the take-home message is one of sustainability meaning more than just carbon, and that we've got to look at how bioenergy supply chains impact the wider environment in general. But I think that the future at the moment is looking very positive indeed, and I hope that forestry continues to play a major role in bioenergy supply chains in this country. So thanks very much.